Welcome to Hashtag DnD. Hashtag DnD is a scripted scenario for AI Dungeon that provides you a toolbox to enhance your experience. It makes your adventure feel like it has real odds and that your decisions are important. Normal AID is just you and the AI prompt. That is great for open-ended exploration. But with the way these AI models are trained, it always seems like you're the best at everything you do. No villain is strong enough to destroy you. Every person you talk to falls in love and wants to help you. We're going to borrow elements from Dungeons and Dragons to improve our game. Let's try it with a hashtag. A brutal defeat. Oh, look, this is what happens when there's a critical success. And here's the hilarious fallout for a critical failure. There are other things you can do with the hashtag. You can create characters. It has a working inventory for every member in your party. Take notes that won't use up context. Spellcasting mechanics. Combat. It's like a light version of Heroes. Let's start with the basics. Any actions you send without a hashtag will be processed like normal. If you do want to use a hashtag, type the hash symbol first, then a keyword. There's a long list of keywords, but let's try roll first. Roll is just a basic way of calculating the odds of something happening. Whenever I play AID, I like rolling a die to see if I'm successful at whatever action I'm trying to do. Now you can do this directly in-game. The result is for your reference so you can respond accordingly. In my case, I'm going to create my own odds. I say if I roll a number greater than or equal to 13, I'm going to successfully steal this gold pouch. Any lower, I fail. Also in D&D, if I get a 20, that's considered a critical success. That means you should succeed at whatever task it may be, and with finesse. If you get a 1, that's a critical failure. You would automatically fail in some terrible and outrageous way. Here we go. Success! Let's update the story to reflect that. This is a 20-sided die, or a D20 as D&D fans call it. It's the default for the roll hashtag. You can roll any sort of die, actually. This is a D6. To roll a D6 in-game, type hashtag roll D6. You can even roll unconventional dice numbers. Instead of rolling a D18, though, consider rolling 3d6. That rolls 3 separate d6s and adds up the total. But what's the difference? Don't they add up to the same number? Well, rolling separate dice creates a sharper distribution curve. You're more likely to get results in the middle versus the extreme ends. That means it's more likely to get an average or normal result. Isn't math fun? Now let's talk about advantage and disadvantage. Going back to our scenario, let's try to steal a gold pouch again. This time, however, I happen to have a broken arm. That's my disadvantage. Let's do the roll again. Hashtag roll disadvantage D20. What it does instead is it rolls 2 D20s, then picks the lowest number of the two. You're going to have a hard time stealing anything like that. Okay, now my arm is healed up. In fact, I lubed it up with oil and it's really slick now. That's my advantage. Let's try it again with advantage this time. It selects the higher number of the two. I'm so slick they didn't even notice me brushing past them. Let's call these words after the hashtag parameters. In the case of roll, you can write the parameters in any order. Sometimes the order matters. In any case, you should refer to the documentation if you want to be sure. You can always call hashtag help in-game as well for the extensive list of hashtags and their usages. A convenience I enjoy is being able to write notes. I used to write personal notes in the plot essentials so I can refer to them whenever I'm playing. That's useful, but this uses up context and I don't necessarily want the AI to be referring to this information every time I commit an action. Type hashtag note, then the message you want to make for yourself. It's good practice to put long parameters inside of quotes. but it doesn't really matter for the note hashtag. To see your notes, type hashtag show notes. To delete a note, hashtag remove note and the number of the note you want to get rid of. You can actually type hashtag delete note or trash note and it works the same. I've included every synonym I possibly could think of for every hashtag I have made. This makes it easier so you don't have to remember the specific keywords to do a thing. Just write what feels natural to you. To truly prevent the AI from being influenced by this text, feel free to delete these messages in the history. Let's get into more character-oriented commands. You should really set up your character first before you go adventuring. Make sure you're in do mode and type hashtag setup or create. This opens up a series of questions for you to answer. Don't be alarmed that this says you. That's just the default character name in AI Dungeon. We'll go over that later. If you're in a rush, select a pre-made character by typing Y. These are basic Dungeons & Dragons starter characters that you can expand on. Type the number of your choice and you're done. These options set up default abilities, skills, spells, equipment, and a character summary. To add the gold pouch to my character's inventory, type hashtag take gold pouch. Remember, it's good form to use quotes if the item has a space in its name, but most of the time you don't have to worry about it. To see our inventory, type hashtag inv or inventory. To drop the gold, type hashtag drop gold pouch. Uppercase or lowercase, plural or singular doesn't matter. Spelling is important though, so don't screw up. Let's be more specific this time. Enter the exact amount of gold we are adding to the inventory. Hashtag take 20 gold. You can add as much as you want to your inventory and it will stay with your character throughout this adventure. Let's say we're at a shop. I love buying stuff from merchants. The buy hashtag has a format to it. Type hashtag buy 1 great axe for 20 gold. The for is optional, but it makes it easier for my brain to understand what I'm typing. If any items have spaces, make sure to wrap them inside of quotes. Success. You'll see that my inventory now shows that I don't have the gold anymore, and I have a new great axe. There's also hashtag sell that just reverses the parameters. Let's make another character but fine-tune the process this time. Hashtag setup. Type N. You're prompted to enter a class. This doesn't really have any bearing in the game. It's up to you to play to your chosen character's background. Now you are given stat dice. These are generated numbers that determine how good you are at these specific abilities. You have to choose your most important ability first. If I'm a barbarian, my strength is most important. A rogue would choose dexterity. So the first ability I list will take the highest value for my dice. Type the number of the ability, then a space. Then choose your second most important ability, third, and so on. Speaking of classes, did you know that wizards derive their power from their intelligence? It's true! Sorcerers use charisma, and druids use wisdom. Choose the appropriate spellcasting ability for your build. If you aren't a spellcaster, type 4. Now you can add a summary for your character. Don't spend too much time here. Really, this is only for your reference. Why would it be important to have a reference, you must be asking yourself? Well, you can have as many members in your party as you want. So, let's hire this barbarian that's just hanging around the pub looking for a job. So far, we've been typing these commands into do actions. It's important for you to switch to story mode for this. The hashtags have assumed we've been using the main player character you. Instead, type the name of the new character Barbara, then hashtag setup. I'll just use a preset for this one. Whenever you want to call a hashtag with that character, always use story mode and type the character name first. Barbara hashtag take 20 gold, a tidy sum. Trading between your characters is simple. Barbara hashtag gives you 20 gold. The system even works in multiplayer. Make sure to set your game to third person, then configure your character's name in the menu. By default, hashtags in your do actions will apply to your character, and other players will be able to do the same. Make sure everyone sets up their own character and have a ball. So, what's the point of all these ability stats anyway? It's for more immersion. In Dungeons and Dragons, you'll often hear dungeon masters ask their players to do ability checks or skill checks. This is a way to determine if your character is able to do a task based on their characteristics and background. We can do this with the check hashtag. This is much more specific than doing a basic roll. For example, Barbara the Barbarian is really strong, so I can check if she can lift my groceries. In story mode, Barbara hashtag check strength. You'll see the value of the roll plus the strength modifier. As long as I get a value above the check number, the task is supposed to succeed. So you can write an appropriate story text to reflect this. You can make this more difficult though. My character is going to try lifting Barbara. She's heavy. A mountain of meat in a loincloth. In do mode, hashtag check hard strength. It's obvious that a weakling wizard has no chance to succeed. I have a negative modifier to strength. I sprained my back. Nevertheless, I'm going to try again, now with a disadvantage. Barbara must find this hilarious and pitiful. Instead of typing a difficulty, you can type a number. No one can reasonably roll a 100 unless they get a natural 20. Oh my god, he has summoned an unknown strength from deep inside of him. You can use any ability for a check. You can also use any skill. You can see the different skills by looking at the character's bio or using the hashtag show skills. You can modify these or make your own by using the hashtag set skill. Pass in the name of the skill, ability, and the proficiency. The ability determines the main value of the skill modifier. Athletics is linked to strength, while acrobatics is linked to dexterity, for example. The proficiency you type is how good your character is at the skill, which results in an added bonus. Perhaps my character is really good at persuasion. Now let's test it. Maybe he's not as persuasive as I thought. The check hashtag is pretty good for players who want to write their own outcomes. Let's get deeper into the immersion though. The try hashtag has the same parameters as check, but you can follow up with some story text. My character wants to try climbing the wall to show off his athletic prowess. Hashtag try athletics to climb the wall. The AI will now write the outcome of the event. Bummer. You can even skip the skill and just do hashtag try to do a push-up. This guy is trying so hard. You've got to give him that. When you're in combat, it'll be nice to get combat-related text. You can see a progression here. Attack is a more specific type of try. Hashtag attack the evil chicken with your short sword. In D&D, attack rolls use the strength or dexterity modifiers depending on if it's a melee or ranged attack, respectively. The attack hashtag defaults to melee. If you want to do a ranged attack, add the ranged property. Hashtag attack ranged the evil chicken with your crossbow. Kapayow! It's super effective. Attack rolls are compared to the armor class or AC of the enemy. You can put a difficulty like medium or hard, or you can enter the armor class yourself. 20 is really difficult. Hashtag attack 20, the big mama boss chicken. I was not up to the task, sadly. Spells are similar to attacks. Let's see what spells I already know. Hashtag spellbook or spells. Very nice. If you want to use another kind of spell, you need to learn it first. Hashtag learn spell, Fireball, for example. You'll notice that a story card is generated for each new spell that isn't already defined. Feel free to generate a description or enter your own. You can also just leave it blank and the AI will usually infer what the spell should do from the name alone. D&D is popular enough that most of the AI models know what these are anyway. Now to cast the fireball at the chicken. Hashtag cast fireball at the chicken. If you have a spell that doesn't really have a target, just cast the spell without listing a target. Hashtag cast ice wall. You'll see these spells and attacks don't generate any damage numbers. That's because coding that sort of system to work in tandem with the AI would be incredibly difficult. It's up to you to negotiate the details with your AI dungeon master. However, I have enabled hit points for each character. So if technical role-playing is important to you, you can damage your character with the damage hashtag whenever the story calls for it. Hashtag damage 20. Oh no, I've fainted. Let me go ahead and take a nap. Hashtag rest. Now if you look at the bio, you can see that I'm back at full health. The rest hashtag restores the health of all characters. Try hashtag short rest to restore half of the health. Your maximum health is dependent on your level and your constitution ability. You can increase your level by gaining XP. Hashtag gain XP or simply XP and the number of points you want to award. I would do this after battle or after doing something notable and choose a number relative to the difficulty of the combat. You can see how much more XP you need to level up in the bio, or you can cheat and do hashtag level up. It all depends on how you want to play. You can celebrate your new level by learning a spell or increasing your skills. I didn't want to hard code the rewards because playing D&D and AI Dungeon is all about freedom. Your adventure might not even be related to the Forgotten Realms or fantasy in general. If managing XP on your own is a bit annoying, you can set Auto XP. Hashtag Auto XP and the XP value. This rewards all members of the party an amount of XP whenever a try, attack, or cast is called. The amount is scaled based on the difficulty of the check. For example, if the difficulty class is 10 and the Auto XP is 100, the reward would be 50 XP if the check was successful. If the check was 20 or higher, it caps at 100. I think that's a pretty fun way to progress your characters. Hashtag D&D is very flexible. If you don't like the presets, hashtag clear stats, hashtag clear skills, hashtag clear inventory, or hashtag reset to clear everything. Then set your own skills and abilities. Don't forget to set special settings like hashtag set spell ability, hashtag set melee ability, and hashtag set ranged ability. If you really want to try your hand at modifying this scenario, the script sources are available for download. I can't wait to see what stories you make with this.
Die! Why don't you die?